Had no need to fight tonight.
What is going on, guys? Nordic97 here, back again with another YouTube video, and today I am doing my second attempt at power rankings. I tried doing this last season. I just did not have time at all. It was very stressful, so I kind of just put it off. So I'm going to try it again this year. I already have a legitimate schedule with everything I'm going to do. We're going to split it between YouTube and TikTok. So this is week one. Week one's going to be on YouTube. Now, week one isn't really that big of a week. It's really kind of just a get it out of the way week, honestly. Next week and the week after that is really where the power rankings start getting interesting. This week is really where I officially rank them after watching a couple of games with them this season. Obviously, we're going to rank them from 32 to 1. I'm going to try and base it off of, the teams that they've been playing, whether they should be at this point where they are or not, and not really off of season records that much. Although there is 32 teams, I can't watch all of them, especially with school. Freshmen, trying to balance that out is incredibly hard, but I'm going to try and do the best I can. And anyways, I won't waste any more of your time. Let's get into number 32. This is just 3, but whatever, on the power rankings. So at number 32 here, I can't imagine anybody will be surprised about this. I have the Montreal Canadiens at 32nd overall. Now, look, I'm not going to blame it entirely on the Habs because they have a lot of injuries, a lot of guys left this offseason, and there's just so much disarray with this team. Shea Weber's injured, likely not coming back at all. Price left to take a leave of absence. They lost Denault. They lost KK. They lost so many other guys. And, of course, they have new acquisitions, Hoffman, Savard. They have guys like that. But it really hasn't made a difference so far. Their leading scorer is Jonathan Drouin with 3 points. Now, look, I'm going to be making a video specifically talking about the Canadiens and how bad they've been probably in the next couple of weeks. But anyways, I want to talk about them right now because they just have not looked good at all. They've honestly looked like a peewee team. They lost to the Rangers 3-1, which, look, it's the Rangers. I guess that was going to happen. But then they lost to the San Jose Sharks 5-0. 5-0. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And I don't care what you say right now. I know that I understand the Sharks are 4-0. They just beat Toronto tonight. But that is unacceptable. You should not be losing to a team that is expected to finish near the bottom of their division. And then, of course, they lost to KK and the Hurricanes 4-1. That was a very salty, very toxic game, and it did not end well for the Habs. And their schedule, it looks relatively easy, but then again, you could have teams that steal games. They play Detroit. They play the Kraken, which should be an easy game. They play the Sharks with what they're looking like right now. That might not be too easy. And then they play the LA Kings, who have been looking pretty solid as well lately. So there is some disarray in Montreal, and honestly, it really wouldn't surprise me if we see something happen in management, although we saw that last season. So you don't know what to do, genuinely. Was the run to the Cup Finals a fluke? We're going to be asking that question all season. Now, at number 31 here, I am not surprised that they are this bad because I kind of predicted it. I predicted it, y'all. At number 31 here, I have the Chicago Blackhawks. They were expected to be a cup contender. I even heard some people saying that, and I was like, huh? So that was very surprising to me. But they have not looked good at all through their first, 5 games of the season. Their leading scorer right now is Patrick Kane with 5 points. That's pretty obvious. Their previous games were just god-awful. That Pittsburgh game, that 5-2 loss, was not good at all. Pittsburgh ran them out of town. That was horrible. They lost to the Islanders 4-1. That was not a good game either, especially since the Islanders were struggling against Tampa and a couple other teams there as well. And then they lost to Vancouver last night 4-1, which, they're playing decent teams, yes, but with the expectations that some people had them at, it's unacceptable for them to be this low. Their upcoming games doesn't get that much easier at all. They play Detroit, which, you might look at it as a simple game. You might not look at it as a simple game. Detroit, honestly, has been looking pretty good. Toronto, they're coming off of a loss, obviously, but Toronto is obviously a good team. They play the Carolina Hurricanes, and then they play the St. Louis Blues, who have been rolling. So, just Chicago, it doesn't look easy for them coming up, and with Fleury failing in net, I don't really trust it. At number 30 here, this might surprise people. Genuinely, this might surprise people. You're going to be like, Nordic, why do you have him this low? I know it's early, I understand that, but they should not be this bad. Come on now. At number 30 here, I have the Colorado Avalanche. They should not be this bad right off the bat. Genuinely. Like, I know McKinnon's out and with COVID, and I think he's coming back soon, but that is honestly unacceptable. Like, truly. Like, they should be at least playing a little bit decent with the stacked team that they have. Their leading scorer is JT Comfer. Yeah, JT Comfer with 4 points. The average hockey fan, they might not even know who Comfer is. So that's pretty surprising. Their last couple of games, they lost to the St. Louis Blues 5-3. The Blues are rolling right now, so they lost to the Washington Capitals 6-3. And then they lost to the Panthers 4-1. So they're playing solid teams, but then again, they're a solid team too. And I mean, yes, they're missing McKinnon, but they're still a solid team. And, you know, that really affects it because, like, Grubauer gone, like, that looks bad for them. Although Grubauer's not doing much better in Seattle. But, I mean, obviously, it's still a big problem with Kemper and net. And, I mean, their schedule doesn't get easier. They play Tampa, they play Vegas, they play St. Louis, and then they play Minnesota. So, like, their schedule is not going to get easier. It looks even harder coming up. So they don't have the easy start right off the bat, obviously. At number 29 here, all I'm going to say to this is, well, this is the time where they blow it up. At number 29, I have the Nashville Predators. Now, don't get me wrong. It is early. I'm not going to deny that at all. But I've been saying for a while, and so many other people have as well, that Nashville should just tear it all down. And they've been trying to have a competitive rebuild where they're still competitive, yet they build up the prospect pool, which, I mean, they haven't done a terrible job at doing. But, I mean, honestly, like, their team has not looked that good. Their leading scorer is Mikael Granlund with 4 points. Kind of concerning there, but although it is early, so I'm not going to say anything. They lost to Carolina 3-2. Carolina's a solid team. No surprise there. They beat the LA Kings 2-1. They're the first team that we've covered so far that actually has a win in their previous 3 games. And then they lost to the New York Rangers yesterday by a score of 3-1. So obviously, I mean, they're playing decent teams. I mean, obviously Carolina and the Rangers and LA is a solid team. But I mean, like, you know, they're tearing it down. Obviously, they're going to be this low. So, and their schedule isn't that much easier. They play the Winnipeg Jets. They play the Minnesota Wild. They play the San Jose Sharks. And then they play the New York Islanders. So it honestly does not get that much easier if you're a Nashville Predators fan. And honestly, David Poile is going to have some big decisions to make come the trade deadline. At number 28 here, we're going to roll them right out of the way here. Arizona Coyotes. Obviously, they're pretty bad. You could argue them below Nashville. You could argue them below Colorado. But I see Colorado as a team playing worse. Arizona's been kind of competitive. I've watched their games. They've been competitive with these teams. They've been putting up shots on net. They've been making it a hard time to win against them. Obviously, they haven't won a game yet, but it is pretty hard to beat this team, and they've really shown that. Their leading goal scorer is Shane Gostisbehere. His jersey's one of these Flyers jerseys with 4 points, so a defenseman leading the team. Yeah. They lost to St. Louis 7-4. Obviously, St. Louis is rolling right now. And then they lost to the Edmonton Oilers 5-1 yesterday. So, obviously, it's not looking too good, but, I mean, tank season's on, so I'm not going to complain as a Coyotes fan. And, I mean, their schedule is not that easy, so I'm glad. They play the Islanders tomorrow. They play Florida. They play Tampa, and then they play Washington. So, it's really not going to get easier for the Coyotes. And, honestly, I don't think anyone on that team's complaining, besides Kessel. At number 27 here, we have a team that is used to bad starts at the beginning of the season. We have the New York Islanders here at 27. They're used to going like 1-2-1 to start off the season, obviously, which is their record right now. So I'm not really panicked as of yet. Right now, their leading goal scorer is Oliver Wahlstrom with 3 points. So Wahlstrom really proved himself there with this Islanders team. Their previous games, they beat the Chicago Blackhawks 4-1. And then they lost to Columbus yesterday in overtime by a score of 3-2. What a game. I was very intrigued by that. And I mean, their upcoming schedule is actually fairly simple. They only have one team here that you could really argue is going to be a hard time for them. The Arizona Coyotes, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Nashville Predators, and then the Montreal Canadiens. So obviously it's going to be pretty easy coming up here for the Islanders. But they have some days off. So they may lose some ground, but they'll also have some ground that they can regain with their games in hand. At number 26 now, we have the Los Angeles Kings. Not a bad start, honestly. They haven't been terrible. They've lost some of their games in overtime, but they're struggling to win a little bit. Their leading scorer right now is currently Anze Kopitar with 8 points. What are we in, 2014? Their previous games, they lost to Dallas 3-2 in overtime. actually tonight, but you'll see this tomorrow. They also lost to Nashville 2-1. They also lost to Minnesota 3-2. And their schedule doesn't get much easier. They play St. Louis twice in the next couple days, and then they play Winnipeg, and then they kind of get it eased up a little bit, and they play the Montreal Canadiens. So, I mean, yeah, that's the Kings. I mean, honestly, they're kind of a middle-of-the-pack team right now. It's not really determined where they'll finish, but they need to start picking up wins soon enough. On to number 25 here, and to be honest, putting them at 25 is really generous. They have not played well right off the gate. I have the Vegas Golden Knights at 25th. Their leading scorer is Max Pacioretty at 3 points. 3 points! And their previous games have not been very good. They lost to the Kings 2-0 in a shutout. They lost to the St. Louis Blues 3-1. And last night they lost to the Edmonton Oilers 5-3. It's been a rough stretch for the Golden Knights to start off the season here. I don't remember them being this bad to start off the gate in any of their seasons. I thought they were pretty solid. They were good at the start of last season. I don't know about the seasons before that, but they were obviously pretty solid in their inaugural year. I think this might be the first season where we've seen this team kind of show some effects, and that could be pretty bad. And I mean, with their schedule coming up, with how these teams are doing, it's not going to get better. They're playing the Islanders, then they play the Avalanche, then they play the Dallas Stars, then they play the Anaheim Ducks. So they're going to get some simple with the Ducks, but apart from that, doesn't get much easier for Vegas. So Vegas is going to have to figure something out, or it could be a long season. At number 24 here, I have the expansion team in the Seattle Kraken. So yeah, they're 24th overall to start off their first ever power rankings. Their leading scorer now is Jared McCann with 5 points, which we kind of expected. But once Yanni Gourde returns, which I think he has for one game, I'm pretty sure he may overtake McCann in the leading scorer role. They have not been very good relatively in their games, but honestly, I feel like they've been playing better and been more competitive than teams below them. They lost to the Blue Jackets 2-1 in overtime. Then they had a big blowout against the Flyers. That was not a good game. They got beat physically. They got beat, I almost said mentally. They got beat physically. They got beat on every single score sheet. It was not good all around for the Kraken in that game. And then they lost to the Devils 4-2. So it hasn't been that good. But honestly, do we really expect them to be like this dominant team that Vegas was? No, I really don't. And their upcoming games, they don't have that hard of a schedule relatively. They play Vancouver, then they play Montreal, which could be an easy game for them. They play the Minnesota Wild, and then they play the New York Rangers. So it's not too hard of a schedule coming up. So you may see some upside there from the Kraken. They could rise, they could fall. Really depends on how you look at it. Now at number 23 here, I have the Calgary Flames, a team that, this is kind of how they start off usually. Their leading scorer right now is Johnny Gaudreau with 4 points, obviously. In their previous games, they lost their season opener to the Edmonton Oilers in a 5-2 L. Then they lost to the Anaheim Ducks in overtime, a.k.a. Jamie Drysdale. And then they beat the Detroit Red Wings for the first win of the season, 3-0. So in a win, they have not let in a goal. So it's interesting. And the next couple of games aren't going to be easy for them. They play Washington today at 1 p.m., they play the Rangers, then they play the Devils, then they play the Pens. So it's going to get pretty tough for Calgary here right away, and we already expected it. Now, I'm going to stand by my hot take and say that, yes, they are going to make the playoffs, or at least going to become close to the playoffs. In fact, they could either be very close or they could just barely fall out. So that's how I see Calgary. It's really diverse on what people think of this team. Ranked at number 22 here, I have the Boston Bruins, a team that has not played that much. So I'm not going to rank them low. I'm not going to rank them high. I'm going to try and rank them in a little bit of the middle. Their leading scorer right now is Brad Marchand with 5 points, obviously. I mean, like, who else is going to lead? Bergeron? Come on now. Their previous games, they beat Dallas in their season opener 3-1. Then they lost an unexpected game to the Flyers 6-3. Philly looking lethal. We'll get into them later. Then they beat the Buffalo Sabres yesterday 4-1. So I put them at 22nd. I mean, that's not terrible of a ranking. They're facing the undefeated teams, the teams that are undefeated right now. They're facing the San Jose Sharks. They're facing the Florida Panthers twice in the next couple of days, and then they face the Carolina Hurricanes. So it's going to get pretty competitive for Boston here. We're really going to see what this core can do, what Jeremy Swayman, what Linus Ullmark, what this blue line, what this forward core, what this whole team overall can do against some of the best teams in the league right now. We're going to see it. At number 21 here, I have the Winnipeg Jets. Not a bad team. Still in the middle of the pack a little bit. They still need to start gaining some wins. Right now, I think they're 500. Their leading scorer right now is Kyle Connor with 7 points. Not that bad, to be honest. Their previous games, they lost to the Sharks 4-3. Then they lost in just an embarrassing game. That was an embarrassing game. To the Minnesota Wild 6-5. And then they beat the Anaheim Ducks, which they usually should beat unless if it's the beginning of the season. They beat them 5-1. So not a terrible start, but it could be better. Their upcoming games, they kind of have a light schedule compared to other people. They have Nashville, they have Anaheim, then they have LA, then they have the Sharks. So it kind of is a bit of a light schedule coming up here for the Jets, but mostly Western Conference teams. So it's going to be pretty easy. Finishing at 20th on my power rankings today, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning, your defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. It wasn't that good of a start, personally. I didn't think it was that good. Right now, their leading scorer is Steven Stamkos with 7 points, so that's not bad. But they did not start off too well. They lost to Pittsburgh, which I don't have on the board here. They beat Detroit 7-6, but they almost lost to Detroit. They came back in that game and won. They beat Washington 2-1. Then they lost to Florida 4-1. So right now, it's a bit worrisome for Tampa. It's worrying that the amount of depth that they lost this offseason could really affect this roster coming up. Now, look, they have a bit of a light schedule. Kind of. It's kind of half and half when you look at it. They have Colorado coming up, which, I mean, Colorado hasn't been too good, obviously. They have the Buffalo Sabres coming up. Then they have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Then they have the Arizona Coyotes. So it's really split. Some of the teams are hard to face. Some of the teams are easy to face. So Tampa, kind of hard to say where they go from here. Now, moving on to number 19 here, I have the Dallas Stars. Not a terrible team. Their leading scorer is Radek Faksa with 4 points. Okay. Then their previous games, it's been all right. They lost to the Ottawa Senators by a score of 3-2. Then they beat the Pens in a shootout 2-1. Then they beat the LA Kings in overtime yesterday 3-2. So the thing is with Dallas, they need to start winning in regulation. A lot of their wins are in overtime. In fact, I think all their wins are in overtime at this point. So obviously they need to start thinking about that. And when you look at the teams that they're facing, it could be pretty easy to get some wins in regulation. They face the Blue Jackets, then they face the Knights, which aren't looking too good. Then they face the Ottawa Senators, then they face the Winnipeg Jets. So they have some interesting teams coming up. I feel like they probably stay around 19 for at least another week, judging by the teams that they're playing right now. They'll probably split them 2-2. If I want to predict those, honestly. At number 18 now, I have the Ottawa Senators. Not a terrible team. They're not off to a bad start relatively, but honestly, though, it could be better. Right now, the leading goal scorer is Chris Tierney with 3 points. It's weird, some of the leaders. But they'll obviously change as the weeks roll along. Their games in the previous couple days, they lost to Toronto 3-1, which was expected. They beat the Dallas Stars by a score of 3-2. Very entertaining game. Nick Paul with a dirty backhander. And then they lost to the San Jose Sharks by a score of 2-1 on Thursday. So their upcoming games, they play the Rangers, then they play the Caps, then they play the Dallas Stars, then they play Chicago Blackhawks. So really, it's split right now. It's really split on the teams that they play. You can argue that the Rangers and Capitals are pretty hard teams to face. Then you could argue Dallas is kind of in the middle. Then you could argue Chicago. Right now, they're not that good, so Ottawa has an advantage. But right now, I'm not too sure with their next coming games that they're really going to, surprise people like they think they're going to. I feel like they're probably going to lose 3 out of 4. I'm being honest. Now at number 17 here, I have the Vancouver Canucks. Another very solid team that honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they go up by 10 spots by the time I do my YouTube power rankings in 2 weeks. They look like a very significantly good team right now, and they really could be on the rise. Their leading scorer right now is Connor Garland, with 6 points. I really miss him in Arizona, being dead honest. In their previous games the past couple of days, they lost to Detroit by a score of 2-1. They lost to Buffalo 5-2, which was pretty disappointing. But then they beat Chicago 4-1. So I'm not going to say that this was bad. Detroit, very competitive this season, so I'm not going to blame that on them. Buffalo, you should beat Buffalo, but whatever. And then Chicago 4-1, not bad. So, I mean, they're not playing terrible. And then their upcoming games here, they face the Kraken. They faced the Kraken in the Kraken's first home game at 10 p.m. tonight, if I'm not mistaken. Then they faced the Minnesota Wild. Then they faced the Flyers again. Then they faced the Oilers. So you're going to have some big contests coming up here for the Canucks. It's really going to determine, where this team kind of goes from here. These next couple of games are really the momentum games for which direction this Canucks team goes. They go to the playoffs, or do they go back to lottery? Now, moving on to the middle of the power rankings, we officially hit the middle mark. At number 16 here, I have the New Jersey Devils. Pretty good team. I'm so excited, especially after that Chicago game. Woof, I am so excited for Devils hockey coming up. Their leading scorer right now is Jack Hughes with 3 points. Obviously, their previous games, of course, Hughes is injured right now, so that's not very good. Their previous games, they beat Chicago 4-3 in overtime. What a game. Then they beat the Kraken 4-2. Just their editor on Instagram, dude, with the Squid Game thing, that's so cool. And then they lost to Washington 4-1, so you can't win them all. But I really like this Devils team. Hughes, Heischer, Wood, they're just among the many other guys on this core that I really enjoy watching. So I'm so excited to watch the Devils coming up. Now moving on here to number 15, we have the Anaheim Ducks. Now this may surprise people how high I have them, but I feel like they've been very competitive than other teams, so I'm moving them up a little bit. Their leading scorer right now is Kevin Shattenkirk. Yeah, with 6 points. Very surprising. Their previous games as of late, they beat Calgary 3-2 in overtime. They lost to the Oilers 6-5, which they were the team that came closest so far to beating the Edmonton Oilers. So, gotta hand it to them. And then they lost to the Winnipeg Jets 5-1. So obviously, they're not going to stay at 15th, especially when you look at their schedule coming up. They face the Minnesota Wild, the Jets again, then they face the Sabres, and then the Golden Knights. So right now, the Ducks are not going to stay at 15th, but I figured, you know what? They played pretty well lately. It's worth giving them, some recognition before it all goes downhill. At number 14, now we move on to a team that I have really enjoyed. Genuinely, I've really enjoyed watching their games. Detroit Red Wings at 14th. They're such an entertaining team. Like, I don't even know. Like, they're not even really at the point where they're, like, in their prime yet. Like, Raymond's still developing. Seider's still developing. They got Edmondson and Kosa that they still got to develop as well. Like, this team's going to keep getting better. And that's the part that makes me so hyped. Their leading scorer right now is Tyler Bertuzzi with 6 points. Their previous games, they beat Vancouver 3-1 or 2-1. I think it might have been 2-1. That's a typo there. Sorry about that. They beat Columbus 4-1. They're the only team that's beaten Columbus so far. And then they lost to Calgary 3-0, which, I mean, you can't win them all, but, And then their schedule coming up is not that bad at all. They face off Montreal, then they face off against Chicago. Then it gets a bit harder, goes uphill with Washington, and then it just hits its peak with Florida. So it's going to get competitive for Detroit. We're really going to see what this team can do. But right now, I genuinely enjoy them. Like, they have underrated guys like Steffens. Like, he came from Tampa Bay in a trade. Like, nobody expected this guy to crack the lineup. And look, he's already playing, like, third, fourth line minutes, and he's playing very solid. So you love to see it. Now, at number 13, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. When you see 12, you're going to go ballistic. Third team is the Maple Leafs. Their leader right now is William Nylander with 5 points. Very solid so far. I've really liked the way he's played. And their previous games, they would be higher, but honestly, they just haven't been that good. They beat Ottawa 3-1, so not a bad game there. They lost to the Rangers 2-1 in overtime, very entertaining. And then they lost to the Sharks yesterday 5-3. So I mean, it's still like I understand it's early, but like it's San Jose. Come on, Toronto. And someone threw their jersey onto the ice, and I was like, what the heck? Give me the jersey. Look, I have nothing Toronto in the room besides a pennant. That's literally it. I have nothing else. And then Toronto's upcoming schedule, they face off against the Pittsburgh Penguins, then the Carolina Hurricanes, and then it eases down a little bit with Chicago and then Detroit. So it gets easier for Toronto, but it's going to get hard before it gets better. So they're going to play two very good teams right now in the NHL, and then they face off against two teams you could argue could be down towards the bottom. At number 12 here, I have the Buffalo Sabres. And I know what people are thinking. Why is Buffalo above Toronto? Because Buffalo's actually been decent. Their leading goal scorer is Miller with 5 points. Another defenseman that the casual hockey fan would not know. Yeah. Their previous games, they beat the Arizona Coyotes in a shootout 2-1. Then they beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-2, which was a very interesting game. Of course, Vancouver just kind of a fluke game, as Vancouver call it. And then yesterday, they lost to the Boston Bruins by a score of 4-1. So they suffered their first loss, but they've been pretty solid, and it's going to go downhill no matter what team they play now. They play the Devils, then they play the Lightning, then they play the Ducks, and then they play the Kings. So actually, it's kind of a simple schedule when you really look at it. They really team that you could only see them not really beating is Tampa and the Devils, honestly. Like, it's interesting, like, honestly. But I mean, yeah, you never know. You never know when it comes to hockey. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see where the Sabres go. Maybe they win more games. Maybe they just lose every game for the rest of the season. Never know. Now at number 11 here, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. I like the Flyers. I mean, like, genuinely, like, obviously they're my favorite team. You can see everywhere. But I really like how the Flyers have done with their offseason and how they've played so far. Their leading scorer right now is Joel Farabee with 6 points. Obviously, Farabee should be leading. I literally said when he was drafted, that guy's going to be something. So I love to see it. They lost their season opener to Vancouver in a 5-4 shootout loss. So they haven't suffered a loss without a point yet. So that's interesting. Then they beat the Seattle Kraken. Don't know what happened there. They beat the Kraken 6-1, and then they beat the Bruins 6-3. So they've scored 12 goals in the past 2 games. Combined with their loss, that's 17 goals in 3 games. That's pretty impressive, honestly, when I look at it. And then their upcoming games is going to get hard, but honestly, I'm not surprised. They play the Florida Panthers, then they play the Edmonton Oilers, then they play the Vancouver Canucks, then they play the Calgary Flames. So it's going to get pretty competitive here for Philly, but I'm confident with the goaltending and the defense that we're going to be okay now. Now, moving on here into the top 10 for my first power rankings, I have the Minnesota Wild, a team who has looked very solid as of late. Their leading goal scorer right now is Matt Zuccarello. Yeah, it's like we're back in 2013 Rangers. Anyways, their previous games here, they faced off against the Anaheim Ducks and they won 2-1. Then they faced off against the Los Angeles Kings and won 3-2. Then they beat the Winnipeg Jets by a score of 6-5 and just a great comeback win. Now, the reason why I didn't rank them higher, like, yeah, they have 3 wins in a row. The reason why I didn't rank them higher is because all those games were 1-goal games. They were all very close. They haven't had a game where I could legitimately say, yeah, they were pretty solid in that. So, I mean, well, they were pretty solid, but what I mean is that they haven't had, like, a legitimate game where they legitimately outplayed the team the whole game. So, honestly, I didn't rank them that high because of that, but with their upcoming schedule, they should be able to go up higher now. They play the Anaheim Ducks, then they play the Nashville Predators, then they play the Canucks, then they play the Kraken. So the hardest team out of all of those is probably the Canucks. Honestly, I think they have 3 out of 4 of those wins in the bag. So it's going to look very good coming up here for the Minnesota Wild. Now, at number 9 here, I have a team who is absolutely rolling right now. I love how they've been playing. And, you know, I love when teams prove me wrong, and St. Louis did that. The St. Louis Blues are ranked number 9 on my power rankings here. My leading goal scorer for them is Jordan Kyrou with 7 points. Yeah, Kyrou kind of came out of nowhere last season, so I'm pretty impressed with that. They beat the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 5-3, which is pretty impressive. They beat the Arizona Coyotes by a score of 7-4, which wasn't really impressive. Then they beat the Vegas Golden Knights by a score of 3-1. That's pretty impressive. So I really like what St. Louis has been doing lately, and I've been really impressed, honestly. In their upcoming games, they play the Kings twice. Then they play the Colorado Avalanche again. Then they play the Chicago Blackhawks. So right now it looks pretty simple for the Blues when you look at it relatively. So obviously Blues fans are pretty stoked about this. So at number 8 here, I have a team who has just shocked me. This is shocking. Like, this is the one team that has just shocked me with how good they've been. I know I said shocking like 5 times. Anyways, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets at number 8. That might be mind-boggling to people, but I have them at 8th. I've been loving how they've been playing. Their leading scorer right now is Oliver Bjorkstrand, which I was surprised it wasn't Patrick Laine, with 7 points. Their previous games, they beat the Seattle Kraken by a score of 2-1 in overtime. Patrick Laine with the overtime winner. They lost to Detroit 4-1. Can't win them all. Then they beat the Islanders 3-2 in overtime on Thursday. Love that game. Laine, overtime winner. Laine coming back from just, it was a pretty controversial season last season. Dubois trade, Laine trade, it all happened at the same time. It was all just a big controversy state there, the fortnight, all that good stuff. And he comes back, he's coming in now, and he's scoring goals. And that's what I love to see. And I mean, with their upcoming games, it's going to get pretty tough with this team. They're not going to stay at 8th in my rankings for long. But honestly, it's good to keep them here. Right now, they're playing the Hurricanes. They play Dallas. They play the Rangers, and then they play the Devils. So it's going to get pretty tough. But right now, pretty good to be a Jackets fan. At number 7 here, I have the New York Rangers, a team who started off pretty rough, and now they're coming in to full form. Their leading scorer right now is Mika Zibanejad with 5 points. Pretty impressed with how he's played so far. And then here are the previous games. They beat Montreal by a score of 3-1. Then they had that super impressive overtime against Toronto, 2-1 W. And then they beat Nashville 3-1. So it's been pretty impressive what the Rangers have been putting together. And when you look at their upcoming schedule, they should win almost all their games coming up. They play the Ottawa Senators, the Calgary Flames, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Seattle Kraken. So it's going to be hella impressive watching the Rangers coming up in the next couple of days. Honestly, I've genuinely enjoyed watching some of their games, and I can't wait to keep watching more. Now, at number 6 here, I have a team that I'm hella impressed with, a team who rose above controversy that I had to put them this high. I have the San Jose Sharks at 6th. Right now, the leading scorer is Logan Couture with 7 points. Their previous games have been a 5-0 win against the Canadiens, a 2-1 win against the Senators, and then a 5-3 win against the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's been hella impressive what San Jose's put together. They are currently 4-0 right now. Hella impressed. And honestly, when I look at it, they've been through so much controversy, especially in the offseason, that this team's really said, you know what? Screw it. Screw him. We're going to work our asses off, and we're going to play. And I feel like that's really what they've done, and I've really been impressed with that. I'm not even going to say the guy's name because, honestly, his contract could get terminated. Who knows? Their upcoming games now are Boston, Nashville, Montreal, and Winnipeg. So it's pretty split there. Nashville and Montreal should be easy wins. Boston and Winnipeg could be a bit tougher, but honestly, San Jose, if they try, they could pull it together. So we're going to see what they can do here in the coming days, especially against Boston. That's their big contest. Moving on into the top 5 for my first power rankings here. At number 5, we have a team that, they may be old, but they can still kick ass. I have the Washington Capitals at 5th. Their leading scorer now, obviously, is Alex Ovechkin with 8 points. I mean, come on, it's not 2013. It's 2021, duh. And their previous games as of late, they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning by a score of 2-1. Then they beat the Avalanche 6-3. Then they beat the Devils 4-1. So it's been a pretty interesting stint here for the Caps. They beat the Rangers, obviously, as well. So right now, I think they're 3-1. And, I mean, their upcoming games, they have a very simple schedule coming up. They face the Calgary Flames at 1 p.m. They face the Ottawa Senators, the Detroit Red Wings, and then they face the Coyotes. So they have a very simple schedule coming up. And honestly, when you look at all those teams, they should win at least 3 out of 4. Genuinely. And I feel like, they could really move on and they could really prove people wrong. But all that matters at this point, since 2018, all that matters is the playoffs. They're kind of like a Toronto, yet they won the Cup. Yeah. At number 4 here, I have a team who has really impressed me, the Carolina Hurricanes, a team who I didn't like their offseason moves, but they kind of proved me wrong. Their leading scorer right now is Andrei Svechnikov with 5 points. Pretty obvious there. Their previous games, they beat the Islanders 6-3. They beat the Preds 3-2, and then they beat KK's former team, the Montreal Canadiens, by a score of 4-1. And their schedule kind of split, kind of easy, kind of hard, depending on how you look at it. Toronto, Boston, Chicago, and Arizona. So it looks pretty hard, but it looks pretty easy at the same time. So right now, Carolina kind of has a balanced schedule, so they should be pretty solid in the coming days. Now, at number 3 here, I have a team that I've just been impressed with. And honestly, as a Flyers fan, I hate to say it, but I've been so impressed with them. The Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins. I might surprise people like, why are they this high? They're like 2-0-2. I am so impressed with what they've done. Their leading scorer now is Brock McGinn with 4 points. Kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody was really talking about him. I mean, he made the signing, sure, from the Hurricanes. Obviously a great forward, but nobody was really talking about him as like that guy that was going to lead the team off the bat. They lost to Florida in overtime 5-4. They beat Chicago 5-2 in that just blowout game. And then they lost to Dallas 2-1. But the thing is, like, that might not sound that impressive. They did it without Crosby and Malkin. So I'm very impressed with what the Pens have done. And their upcoming games, it's going to be pretty tough. They play Toronto, they play Tampa, and then they play Calgary. Then they play the Devils. So it's going to be pretty tough coming up here for Pittsburgh. But I've loved what they've done so far. They've been so enjoyable to watch, especially that Tampa game. I don't have it on the board here, but it was very, very, very enjoyable. Now, at number 2 here, I have a team who I think is very impressive. They proved me wrong. Even when I said it in the Atlantic Division, I was kind of doubting them. The Florida Panthers. Impressed. I am hella impressed. Their leading scorer now is Carter Verhaeghe with 5 points. Now, the thing is, I thought that last season, I looked at it, I saw that, against Tampa, it wasn't the best. And then, of course, they played teams like Chicago. Dallas was bad at one point. Nashville was bad at one point. Who's another team? Detroit, Columbus. That division was kind of weak. So I was like, we'll see how Florida does. And they've really impressed me. They beat the Islanders 5-1. They beat Tampa 4-1. Then they beat Colorado 4-1. So 3 teams there that were projected as the top 3 to win the cup this coming season. That's impressive. Sorry for the cough. It's been a long day. Their upcoming games here, they face off against the Philadelphia Flyers today. Then they face off against the Arizona Coyotes. Then they face off against the Boston Bruins. Then they face off against Detroit. So it's going to be pretty tough coming up here. Philly's going to be tough. Boston's going to be tough. Arizona's proven tough for Florida. And then there's Detroit. So it's going to be pretty tough coming up here. But I feel like Florida, with the amount of depth and the amount of players that they have, I feel like they could pull it off. And finally, at number 1, ranked number 1 in the first overall power rankings for 2022, I have the Edmonton Oilers. Dominant. Just dominant, period. Their offseason, look, the defense was bad. That was a very bad acquisition. But honestly, the offense is shut down. Their leading scorer, obviously, is McDavid, 11 points. Who else is going to lead the team? Come on. Their previous games, they beat Anaheim 6-5. That's the team that's come the closest. They beat Arizona 5-1, and then they beat Vegas 5-3. They are 5-0 right now. It's been hella impressive. Warren Fogle looking like Connor McDavid 2.0. Hyman put up 2 goals tonight. Cassian scored a goal. Draisaitl put up 2 tonight against Vegas. They've been very impressive. Their upcoming games, they face Philly, then they face Vancouver, then they face Seattle, then they face Nashville. So 2 of those games are simple. 2 of those games are going to be competitive. So it's really split with what the upcoming games are for the Oilers. But honestly, if they win 3 out of 4, or even all 4 of them, I wouldn't be surprised. This team is so dominant. And I just love watching this team play. Genuinely, they're so entertaining. So that'll do it for the first power rankings. This is week 1 complete. Next week we'll be on TikTok at Nordic97. I'll post a picture right here of my page. You can go follow if you want. It will be posted on Saturday at some point, sometime in the morning, before the Saturday games start. But anyways, thank you all for watching. If y'all stick around to the end, I really do appreciate it. And it's been a bit of a long video, so we haven't made a video this long in a while. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.